The unknown is not where most people fail, it is where they freeze. Miyamoto Musashi understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Every duel he entered carried uncertainty. The opponent, the terrain, the timing, the outcome. Yet he walked forward without hesitation, not because he believed he would win, but because he had trained himself to stand calmly inside, not knowing. Most people try to eliminate uncertainty before they act. They wait for clarity. They wait for confidence. They wait until the path feels safe. Musashi did the opposite. He stepped directly into situations where nothing was guaranteed, knowing that fear thrives only when the mind demands control. He wrote that the way is found not in preparation alone, but in response. When the plan breaks, when expectations collapse, when the moment asks something you did not rehearse, the unknown exposes who you really are. It strips away identity, comfort, and prediction. That is why it feels dangerous. But Musashi saw it as a teacher, one that sharpens perception and forces presence. The question is not how to avoid the unknown, but who you become when it appears. Chapter 1. The Awakening. There is a moment before every confrontation with the unknown where the body reacts faster than the mind. The breath tightens, the chest contracts, the eyes search for certainty that does not exist. This moment decides more lives than any single action ever will. Most people turn away here. They call it intuition, timing, or being realistic. In truth, it is avoidance, dressed as wisdom. Musashi was no different in his early years. As a young warrior, he faced not only armed opponents but the deeper terror of unpredictability. No duel unfolded as expected. The strongest opponent could fall quickly. The weakest could expose a fatal flaw. Victory never followed a script. This repetition carved something into him. He began to see that fear did not come from danger itself, but from the mind demanding a known outcome. The unknown was not the enemy. The craving for control was. Each encounter stripped away another illusion. Skill did not guarantee safety. Planning did not guarantee survival. Even experience could betray you if it hardened into expectation. The awakening was not confidence. It was humility before reality. Modern psychology describes this as intolerance of uncertainty. The nervous system interprets the unknown as threat, flooding the body with urgency and distortion. Decision-making narrows. Perception collapses. This is why people sabotage themselves when conditions are unclear. Musashi trained where clarity could not protect him. He arrived late. He changed weapons. He disrupted patterns, not to intimidate others, but to remove his own dependency on familiarity. In doing so, he discovered the first truth of discipline. You do not master the unknown by predicting it. You master yourself by remaining present when prediction fails. This is where the path begins, not with courage, but with the willingness to stay. Chapter 2. The Ancient Principle. Musashi did not treat the unknown as a problem to solve. He treated it as a condition to inhabit. In Zen thought, there is a principle older than Musashi himself, mushin. No fixed mind. It does not mean empty or passive. It means a mind that does not cling, a mind that does not freeze itself around expectations, fears, or rehearsed outcomes. Most people carry a rigid inner posture. They need things to go a certain way to feel stable. When reality deviates, the mind panics and the body follows. Mushin dissolves this rigidity. It trains the mind to move as reality moves. Musashi absorbed this through lived experience, not theory. In his writings, he warned against preferring one stance, one timing, one rhythm. Preference creates blindness. When you expect a certain attack, you stop seeing what is actually happening. Zen monasteries trained this capacity through repetition under uncertainty. Monks were interrupted during meditation, tasks were changed without warning, comfort was intentionally removed. The goal was not suffering, but adaptability, a nervous system that does not collapse when control is lost. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient insight. When the brain predicts correctly, it relaxes. When predictions fail, stress spikes. But with repeated exposure to uncertainty, the brain learns something critical. Uncertainty itself is not lethal. The stress response weakens. Perception widens. Musashi lived inside this training. He chose unfamiliar terrain. He fought at unusual times. He carved weapons from wood instead of relying on steel. Each choice weakened the mind's addiction to certainty. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is about tightening control, schedules, rules, perfect preparation. But Musashi practiced a deeper discipline. He disciplined his need for things to be known. There is a quiet moment here, often missed, where the mind realizes it does not need guarantees to act. When the unknown appears, two paths open. One is resistance, the other is responsiveness. Mushin lives in the second. This does not make action reckless. It makes it precise. When the mind is not occupied defending its expectations, it sees clearly. Timing improves. Decisions simplify. The body responds without delay. Musashi wrote that the way is not fixed. The moment changes. The opponent changes. You change. Only awareness remains reliable. In modern life, the unknown appears differently. A career shift, a conversation without a script, a failure with no explanation. The same ancient principle applies. The mind that clings will suffer. The mind that flows will learn. The unknown is not asking you to be fearless. It is asking you to stop demanding certainty before you move. This principle does not make life easier. It makes you steadier. And from steadiness, a different kind of strength emerges. Chapter 3. The Internal War. When the unknown arrives, the real battle does not happen outside. It detonates inside the nervous system. The body reacts before thought can organize itself. Muscles tighten. Vision narrows. Time feels distorted. This is not weakness. It is ancient biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is not the reaction. The problem is identification with it. Musashi learned that most warriors were defeated before the first strike. Their minds collapsed under uncertainty. They mistook the surge of fear for a signal to retreat, hesitate, or overcommit. In truth, it was simply the nervous system entering survival mode. Modern science explains this clearly. When the brain cannot predict what will happen next, the amygdala activates. Cortisol rises. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for judgment and strategy, goes offline. You are left with impulse and reflex. This is why people make decisions they later do not recognize as their own. The unknown amplifies this internal conflict. One part of the mind wants safety. Another wants resolution. The body wants movement. The mind wants certainty. This friction creates panic, rushing, or paralysis. Musashi did not attempt to silence this war. He observed it. He noticed that fear peaked not at the moment of danger, but in the moments before. Anticipation was more destructive than contact. Once the fight began, clarity often returned. This taught him something critical. The mind suffers most when it imagines outcomes it cannot control. There is a quiet pivot here, where many never look inward. Instead of asking how to remove fear, Musashi trained to move while fear was present. He did not demand calm. He demanded alignment, breath with movement, attention with reality, action without internal debate. Zen practice mirrors this. In meditation, discomfort arises. The instruction is not to escape it, but to remain still and aware. Over time, the nervous system learns that discomfort does not equal danger. The alarm softens. Musashi applied this under lethal conditions. He allowed uncertainty to exist without feeding it with narrative. No stories about winning or losing, no rehearsals of disaster, only what was happening now. This is why he warned against excessive planning. Planning creates attachment. Attachment creates internal resistance when reality deviates. Resistance drains energy faster than effort ever could. In modern life, This internal war appears constantly, waiting for a response. Entering a difficult conversation, facing a decision without enough information, the same biology activates, the same urge to escape uncertainty appears. The discipline Musashi embodied was not emotional suppression, it was nervous system literacy. He recognized the signals, stayed with them, and acted anyway. The unknown will always provoke a reaction. Mastery begins when you stop confusing the reaction with a command. When the body trembles, you do not retreat. When the mind panics, you do not obey. You stay, you breathe, you move. This is the internal war, not to be won, but to be understood. Chapter 4. The System. Musashi did not rely on courage to face the unknown. He relied on structure. This is where most people misunderstand him. They imagine a lone warrior improvising endlessly. In reality, Musashi built a system so stable that it allowed freedom inside chaos. The system was not rigid behavior, it was non-negotiation at the level of principle. His first rule was simple: do not depend on conditions. Weapons break, terrain changes, plans collapse. If your effectiveness depends on the environment behaving, you are already defeated. So he trained without comfort. Wooden swords instead of steel, uneven ground, fatigue, hunger. Disruption was not an accident. It was the training itself. The system worked because it shifted discipline away from outcomes and into process. Musashi did not aim to control the fight. He aimed to control his response to whatever emerged. Zen monasteries used the same logic. Practice at fixed times. Same posture, same form. Not because it was optimal, but because it removed decision-making. When action becomes automatic, the mind is freed to perceive. Modern neuroscience supports this. When behavior is systemized, the basal ganglia take over execution. The prefrontal cortex is no longer consumed by choice. This leaves more capacity for awareness under pressure. Musashi reduced life to essentials: posture, distance, timing, breath. These were always available, regardless of circumstance. When everything else was uncertain, these anchors remained. There is a quiet shift here that changes everything. Discipline is no longer about forcing yourself forward. It becomes about removing exits. When you pre-decide how you will stand, breathe, and move, the unknown loses leverage. Fear still appears, but it cannot derail action. There is nothing to negotiate. This system did not make Musashi rigid. It made him adaptable. Because adaptability does not come from endless options, it comes from a stable core. In modern terms, this looks like simple rules. When clarity disappears, return to fundamentals. When emotion spikes, regulate breath. When the future becomes opaque, act on what is directly in front of you. The unknown overwhelms those who demand certainty. It sharpens those who build systems that do not require it. Musashi did not trust motivation. He trusted form. He trusted repetition. He trusted preparation that could survive collapse. A system like this does not eliminate fear. It makes fear irrelevant, and once fear loses authority, the unknown becomes navigable. Chapter 5. Practice without gaps. The unknown does not defeat people through intensity. It defeats them through interruption. Musashi understood that the most dangerous moment is not the clash itself, but the pause, the missed day, the broken rhythm, the gap where the old self quietly returns. This is why he treated continuity as sacred. Most people believe discipline fails because life becomes difficult. In truth, it fails because they demand ideal conditions. When energy drops, when timing feels wrong, when confidence fades, they stop completely. The gap opens, and momentum dies. Musashi trained against this tendency relentlessly. He did not aim for perfect execution. He aimed for unbroken practice. Even diminished effort mattered more than none. A dull blade still cuts. A tired body still learns. Zen teachings echo this principle. Practice continues through fatigue, doubt, and inconvenience, not as punishment, but as preservation. The form remains alive only if it is not abandoned. Modern behavioral science confirms this pattern. Habits are not erased by difficulty, they are erased by interruption. Once a behavior stops, the brain must renegotiate identity from zero. Continuity protects identity even when performance is weak. There is a quiet moment here where discipline becomes something else entirely. Musashi did not train harder on bad days. He trained smaller, shorter movements, simpler drills, presence without ambition. This kept the thread intact. This is what most people miss. Consistency does not mean intensity, it means refusal to disappear. When circumstances collapse, the practice shrinks but does not vanish. In modern life, this looks ordinary, showing up when motivation is absent, acting when clarity is unavailable, doing the minimum that keeps the system alive. The unknown will always disrupt plans. It cannot be negotiated with. What it respects is continuity. Once you remove the option to stop entirely, fear loses its leverage. The mind can complain, resist, or doubt, but the body still moves. Over time, this rewires trust. You stop trusting mood. You trust motion. Musashi became formidable not because he was always strong, but because he was never absent. His practice did not break when conditions did. Practice without gaps is not heroic. It is quiet, relentless, almost invisible, and this is why it works. Chapter 6. Pre-solutions. The unknown becomes lethal when it arrives faster than your decisions. Musashi did not wait for chaos to appear before responding to it. He removed choice from moments of pressure long before they arrived. This is what separated him from warriors who were skilled but inconsistent. They reacted, he executed. Every failure of discipline follows the same pattern. An unexpected obstacle appears. Fatigue, distraction, emotional turbulence. The mind scrambles for an answer it has never rehearsed. In that moment, the easiest path always wins. Musashi refused to fight battles he had not already decided. Before a duel, he anticipated disruption, weather, delay, provocation, equipment failure. He did not guess outcomes. He pre-selected responses. If the sword broke, continue. If the opponent stalled, wait. If the terrain was uneven, adjust stance. No debate. No improvisation under stress. There is a quiet realization here that changes how effort feels. The mind is weakest when surprised. Modern neuroscience shows that decision-making under uncertainty drains cognitive resources rapidly. The brain defaults to habit or avoidance. Pre-decided actions bypass this collapse. The nervous system stays regulated because it recognizes a familiar path. Zen monasteries embedded this principle into daily life. Bells rang regardless of mood. Practice moved locations when spaces failed. There was no meeting to discuss exceptions. Continuity mattered more than comfort. Musashi applied the same logic inwardly. When fear appeared, breathe lower. When anger surged, widen perception. When doubt whispered, return to posture. These were not techniques, they were defaults. In modern life, pre-solutions are simple but rare. If exhaustion hits, reduce intensity but do not stop. If time collapses, shorten the action. If confidence disappears, rely on form. The response exists before the problem does. This removes drama from discipline. The unknown loses its ability to negotiate. Most people believe adaptability means deciding well in the moment. In truth, it means deciding early so the moment cannot hijack you. Musashi did not eliminate uncertainty. He made it irrelevant by shrinking the space where it could interfere. When obstacles appear now, they do not feel like crises. They feel like cues. And this is where the unknown changes character. It no longer feels like a threat. It becomes terrain. By the time chaos arrives, the answer is already moving. What remains is not fear, but execution. Chapter 7. Transformation. At a certain point, the unknown stops feeling external. It no longer arrives as a sudden disruption or an unexpected threat. It becomes a permanent condition. Musashi reached this stage not through victory, but through repetition so deep that resistance dissolved. He no longer asked whether conditions were favorable. He no longer waited for clarity. Action arose without ceremony. Not reckless, not forced, simply aligned. This is the transformation most people never experience. They believe discipline is something they do. Musashi understood it as something you become. When practice has no gaps, when responses are pre-decided, when fear no longer controls movement, identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone preparing for life and start living inside it. Zen calls this no separation. No separation between intention and action. No separation between uncertainty and presence. The moment happens, and so do you. Modern psychology describes this as embodied competence. The mind no longer narrates every step. The body knows what to do. This is why masters appear calm under pressure. They are not suppressing fear. They are no longer organized around it. Musashi's opponents often mistook this state for arrogance or indifference. In reality, it was intimacy with reality itself. He did not fight the unknown. He moved with it. In modern terms, this looks subtle. You act without waiting for motivation. You speak without rehearsing every outcome. You continue without needing reassurance. Life becomes less dramatic and more precise. There is a final quiet question here, one that cannot be answered intellectually. Who are you when certainty never arrives? Not when things go well. Not when plans succeed, but when nothing is guaranteed and no script exists. This is where Musashi lived. Not above fear, but beyond dependence on it. Not fearless, but unhooked. The unknown never stopped appearing. It simply lost its power to decide who he was. And when that happens, the path no longer feels threatening. It feels honest. Conclusion. The unknown never stops coming. It changes shape as you grow older, more complex, more personal. What once looked like danger becomes ambiguity. What once looked like fear becomes responsibility. Musashi did not outgrow the unknown. He learned how to stand inside it without collapsing. This is the quiet lesson beneath all technique and philosophy. You are not meant to feel ready before you act. You are meant to become steady while you act. Most people spend their lives trying to reduce uncertainty. Better plans, more information, clearer guarantees, and yet life continues to break those structures without apology. Musashi chose a different path. He trained himself to move without needing the ground to stop shifting. This is not about becoming invincible. It is about becoming unshakable. When fear appears, it no longer dictates behavior. When clarity disappears, motion does not. When the future refuses to explain itself, you still step forward. The unknown is not an obstacle on the path. It is the path. Once you accept this, effort simplifies, discipline softens. You stop asking for permission from circumstances that will never grant it. You act because acting is who you are. Musashi's life was not extraordinary because he defeated others. It was extraordinary because he stopped negotiating with uncertainty. And when you stop negotiating with it, something subtle happens. The unknown no longer feels like something chasing you. It feels like something you are finally ready to walk into.